The June 8, 2010 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Adair.
Here.
Miss Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Mr. Barker. Mr. Beebe. Mr. Bronson. Mr. Cassetti. Mr. Colby. Mr. Daniele. Mrs. Draw. Mr. Eckel. Mr. Esposito. Mr. Gamble. Mr. Gamina. Mr. Haney. Mr. Hanna. Mr. Hyder. Mr. Howland. Ms. Kaylee. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lightfoot is excused. Mr. Monero. Mr. McCann is excused. Mr. O'Brien. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rockow. Mr. Tucciarello. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Yolovich.
Please stay seated. It's my privilege tonight to introduce Sally Hamlin from the First Universal Church of Rochester, who's been invited tonight by Legislator Cynthia Cayley.
You've arrived from many different places this evening, traveling here to do the work you were called to do as representatives of the many who named you leader. And tonight, as we gather together for a moment of prayer to open this session, let us open our hearts as well. Please join me in prayer. Unknown mystery, infinite and blessed spirit of life, the citizens of this county call you by many names. God, Yahweh, Allah, Great Spirit, Brahman, Goddess, Satnam, Void, Ahura Mazda, Ground of Being. All these names brought here, transported here from the four corners of the globe now are whispered, invoked in churches, mosques, temples, and in forests and in homes. Let us open our hearts and our minds to the possibility that the holy is here in this room, that the sacred is here, present in this moment with all of us. As you open the session this evening, may your minds be set upon this blessed work, and may your hearts remain open to courage, to creativity, to compassion, and to commitment. For it is with these qualities, if allowed to guide your work and nurtured within you, that you will notice the needs and the vulnerabilities of many in the communities you serve. It is in the name of all that is holy that we pray that you begin to believe that every single effort made on behalf of what could be matters, that what you do matters, that what you say here matters. By inviting courage, compassion, creativity, and commitment into this room, this evening, we orient ourselves in the direction of creating the world of which we dream, where all are welcome, where all find a place at the table, where all know that theirs is a voice worth hearing. May our hearts stay open to the gifts of creativity, compassion, courage, and commitment this night, and for all the days and nights to come. In your name, may it be so. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Just want to give you this certificate.
Thank you very
Good
much.
job.
Thank you.
There you go. Legislator Carrie M. Andrews will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Andrews. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Without objection, we will take agenda item number 36 out of regular order. Agenda item number 36 is moved by Mr. Quattro, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Will the clerk please read the resolution and memorial for Mr. Calvin Lee Sr., father of legislator Calvin Lee Jr.
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Calvin Lee Sr. Be it resolved that this Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deep sympathy at the recent passing of Calvin Lee Sr., father of Monroe County Legislator Calvin Lee, Jr. And whereas Calvin passed away Friday, May 21st, 2010, and whereas Calvin will always be remembered as a dedicated family man, married to his wife Sarah for 56 years. And whereas Calvin is survived by his wife Sarah and sons Calvin Lee Jr., Michael Lee Sr., and daughter Michelle D. Lee. He is also survived by his grandchildren, Erica, Michael Jr., Tiffany, Latoya, Emery, and Kelvin III, Shabrittany Colbert, Dazrian Drury, and Kelia Lee, and many other friends and family members. And whereas Calvin will long be remembered for his kindness and devotion, and be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Please continue to remain standing. Without objection, we will now take agenda item number 36 out of its regular order. Agenda item number 37 is moved by Mr. Quattro, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Will the clerk please read the resolution of memorial for the Honorable John J. Connell, Monroe County Court Justice?
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of the Honorable John J. Connell. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deep sympathy at the recent passing of the Honorable John J. Connell, Monroe County Court Judge for 26 years. And whereas Judge Connell passed away at age 62 on Saturday, May 15th, 2010. And whereas Judge Connell, a person highly regarded by his peers, will always be remembered as a fair and compassionate man dedicated to serving his community. And whereas Judge Connell presided over a number of high-profile trials within our community, earning the respect of Monroe County as a whole. And whereas Judge Connell is survived by his children, Kevin, Laura, Matthew, and Sean. He is also survived by his brother Thomas and sister Bernadette. And whereas Judge Connell will long be remembered for his leadership and his contribution to our community. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Once again, I ask you to remain standing. Without objection, we'll take agenda item number 38 out of its regular order. Agenda item number 38 is moved by Mr. Quattro, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Will the clerk please read the resolution and memorandum for Mary Ferrazzi, mother of Board of Elections Commissioner Thomas S. Ferrazzi?
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Mary E. Ferrazzi. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deep sympathy at the recent passing of Mary E. Ferrazzi, mother of Election Commissioner Thomas Ferrazzi. And whereas Mary passed away on Monday, May 24th, 2010, and whereas Mary will always be remembered as a devoted mother and grandmother. She loved to spend time with her family and enjoyed shopping, knitting, and having fun. And whereas Mary was predeceased by her son Mark, husband Eliseo, and sister Doris Van Duzer. She is survived by her children Thomas, Christine Knight, Susan Constable, and Stephen. Mary was also survived by many grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and loving friends. And whereas Mary will long be remembered for her loving nature, be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Please be seated. You have received the copies of today's journal for day 6, May 11, 2010. Without exception, the journal stands approved as submitted. There's a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those who are in need of who are hearing impaired. Anyway, requiring assistance should inquire at the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, we would request that you silence them for the duration of the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation.
Legislative referrals have been submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle and are in your folders. This evening, there are several proclamations scheduled. Madam Clerk.
Would Rosario Zacco please come forward? Also, County Executive Maggie Brooks, President Jeffrey R. Adair, and legislators Karen T. Hanna and Vincent J. Esposito. Whereas on the evening of April 30th, 2010, Monroe County Probation Officer Rosario Zacco took heroic action. Officer Zacco was driving home when he spotted a uniformed Rochester police officer with a firearm drawn containing a man holding a large knife in his hand. The police officer was without backup as a large hostile crowd began to form around him. And whereas Officer Zacco used his training and 13 years of experience to prevent this tense situation from escalating. As he stepped out of his vehicle, Officer Zacco displayed his badge and drew his county-issued firearm and worked to control the man with the knife and the impending threat from the crowd. Suddenly, the knife-wielding man lunged at the officer, who fired once and struck the man as intended. Officer Zacco swiftly dove towards the man, removed the knife from his hand, and handcuffed him. And whereas Rosario Zacco, better known as Russ, has been with the probation department since 1997, where he has excelled. Russ has experience in both adult criminal and juvenile services within the department. He spent 9 years supervising a specialized juvenile substance abuse caseload in close collaboration with Monroe County Teen Treatment Court. He is currently supervising high-risk probationers in the Juvenile Risk Intervention Services Coordination Program. And whereas Russ obtained a master's in education while working for the probation department and is an active member of our community. He belongs to the Italian-American Law Enforcement Organization and coaches community soccer and football. Russ and his wife, Chris, have 12-year-old twin boys. Now, therefore, we, Maggie Brooks, County Executive, Jeff Adair, Legislature President, Vincent Esposito, Legislator District 16, and Karen T. Hanna, Legislator District 18, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Rosario Zacco on his heroic actions and dedication to public service.
Thank you. Would you like to say a few words? You sure? How about thank you? You're good? Good. All righty. We're all good.
Would the Penfield dance team please come forward? Also, President Adair and legislators Debbie Draw and E. Daniel Quattro.
Took my spot.
Who did? I did?
Yeah, you grabbed it and held it down there. I know.
Penfield dance team. Girls, you can line up in the front.
There you go. You're welcome.
Oh, is
Thank
this,
you.
Is that? Okay. That's okay, come back. I thought there were more. Whereas the Penfield dance team recently competed in the National Dance Alliance U.S. Championship, an annual championship held in New York City in which dance teams from high schools and studios around the country competed. In 2 categories of this national competition, the Penfield dance team was awarded first place honors. And whereas the team received first place in the small varsity jazz category with their Welcome to the Jungle routine. This is the 3rd time they have been awarded first place since 2006. Moreover, the Penfield dance team was awarded first place honors in the small varsity team performance category, earning the highest score of all team performance routines for the day with the routine Domination. The Penfield dance team also won first place honors at the Greater Rochester Cheer and Dance Tournament, both last year and this year. And whereas parents, teachers, coaches, and all members of the community have taken a great deal of pride in the accomplishments of their hometown teams, the success of the Penfield dance team is admirable and can be attributed to hard work, dedication, and unity. And whereas coaches Nicole Whitehead, Danielle Stavorowski, and Allie Simmons have led this talented group of underclassmen to victory, and we look forward to hearing about additional achievement in the future. We are confident that they will continue to be model citizens for the Penfield community and Monroe County as a whole. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Debbie Draw, Legislator District 9, and E. Daniel Quattro, Legislator District 15, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate the Penfield dance team on an incredibly successful 2010 season.
Hi, I'm one of the coaches, Coach Nicole Whitehead. We just finished our 8th season with the Penfield dance team, and it was really exciting to return back to New York City and take first place at the NDA U.S. Championships. Just real quick, I want to just highlight the girls wouldn't have been able to do it except for they have exceptional cooperation, collaboration, and team unity, more than I've ever seen in the last 8 years that I've coached. And I've been really proud to have coached them, and luckily they are all underclassmen, and all will be returning next year, and we look forward to more success in the future. Thank you.
Would Coach Mary Ann Walker please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Michael G. Barker and Kieran T. Hanna and Vincent Esposito. That's okay. Whereas Coach Mary Ann Walker has gone above and beyond during her career as Bishop Kearney cheerleading coach. She has taught her athletes hard work, respect, confidence, and many other qualities that have made her team successful. Her squad has worked diligently this season, which resulted in a win at the Winter Section 5 Championships. Bishop Kearney cheerleading is no stranger to success, as they have won 18 straight Fall Section 5 championships. And whereas the Kings are a team made up of a strong group of athletes coached by an icon of Section 5 cheerleading, Coach Mary Ann Walker was named Class A2 Coach of the Year. She is well known throughout the community and the sport of cheerleading. This year, Coach Walker retired with a Section 5 victory. However, the hard-working values she instilled in this team will continue. And whereas Coach Mary Ann Walker has become a role model to her athletes, she has taught them that if you put your heart into anything, good things can happen. One of her athletes referred to Coach Walker as one of the greatest influences in my life. Monroe County is pleased to have such a positive influence on our youth. Marianne Walker is a model citizen, and her values will surely translate into her athletes' lives. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Michael G. Barker, Vice President, and Vincent Esposito, Legislator District 16, and Karen T. Hanna, Legislator District 18, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Coach Marianne Walker on her retirement preceded by an outstanding career.
I just want to thank you for this recognition, and I have to really contribute it to these girls and my former cheerleaders. With their hard work and dedication to our program, this career wouldn't have been so successful. So really, it goes to these girls. Thank you.
Would Wayne Blatt please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator John Howland. Whereas Wayne Blatt has spent over 50 years enriching the greater Rochester area by educating local youth in the culturally important art form of ballet. In 1995, he formed the Flower City Ballet, which last month celebrated its 15th anniversary with an evening gala here in downtown Rochester. And whereas Wayne served for 17 years as the premier dancer in the Genesee Civic Ballet under his mentor, Liana Hausler of the National Theater in Prague. He danced the leading role in numerous plays, including The Nutcracker and Swan Lake. In 1960, he was featured in Dance Magazine as an outstanding future young dancer. Wayne has performed with the Genesee Symphony Orchestra and was also a guest dancer with the Baltimore Opera Theater. And whereas Wayne has 40 years of teaching experience and opened his first ballet studio in 1977. Since then, he has ambitiously sought to improve this region's position as an important center for the arts, opening the School of Classical Ballet in 1982. And whereas Wayne's students have gone on to prestigious dancing schools such as Juilliard and the Cincinnati Conservatory, while others dance professionally for such companies as the Ballet Magnificat. Wayne has contributed immensely to the education of local youth, and the preservation of Western culture and art. The Rochester community is greatly indebted to Wayne for all the time and effort he has contributed in pursuing these endeavors. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and John Howland, Legislator District 13, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Wayne Blatt for his contributions to our community through education and the arts.
Thank you. As Artistic Director of the Flower City Ballet and the Board of Directors, we fully accept this acknowledgement for our contribution to the arts in Rochester. Thank you very much.
Would the representatives from the Planned Parenthood of Rochester-Syracuse region please come forward? Also President Adair and Legislator Carrie M. Andrews and Harry B. Bronson. Whereas for over 90 years, Planned Parenthood has advocated and fought for the fundamental right of each individual to make informed health decisions, a leader in building strong families and ensuring that all people have the right to make healthy choices, Planned Parenthood has become one of the most trusted and reliable sources for information and health services. And whereas Planned Parenthood's dedication to help all people, no matter what their race, sexual orientation, age, income, or religious views at one of their 88 affiliates and more than 840 health centers nationwide, has proven their dedication to the diverse needs of the communities in which they operate. More than 90% of what these health centers achieve is preventive and primary health care. And whereas Planned Parenthood of the Rochester-Syracuse region has 7 health centers across central and western New York that deliver high-quality services to thousands of men, women, and teens each year. They offer a variety of comprehensive education programs and resources on sexuality and operate the Rape Crisis Service, which is a free and confidential service available 24 hours a day. Through this service alone, PPRSR offers crisis intervention, counseling, medical examinations, and treatment, advocacy and support, and court accompaniment. And whereas in addition to the services offered here across the country and through partners in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, Planned Parenthood runs the National Day to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, which took place this year on May 5th. All throughout the month of May, Planned Parenthood focused their attention on informing teens of the risks and consequences of unprotected sex and unwanted teen pregnancy. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Carrie M. Andrews, Assistant Democratic Leader, and Harry B. Bronson do hereby honor Planned Parenthood of the Rochester-Syracuse region for their commitment to the health and well-being of the citizens of Monroe County.
I just want to say thank you for this honor. We accept it in partnership with all of our other sister organizations around Monroe County that also work on this problem. So thank you very much.
Would the Eastridge Varsity Cheerleading Squad please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair, Legislators Edward M. O'Brien and Vincent Esposito. Whereas the Eastridge Varsity Cheerleading team had an impressive 2009-2010 season, which culminated in their competing in nationals at the ESPN Worldwide of Sports Complex in Orlando, Florida. And whereas the national tournament in Orlando is one of cheerleading's most popular and demanding tournaments, with hundreds of teams from across the country competing in the event each year. And whereas the Eastridge Varsity Lancers won the top spot in the Contest of Champions large varsity level 4 category and were named grand champions of the event. And whereas the hardworking squad, which has claimed the national title twice in the last 3 years, is coached by Serena Mirabella and had already placed second in the Section 5 tournament and won the Monroe County Division III championship in January of 2010 before heading to Florida. And whereas members of the Eastridge Varsity Cheerleading Squad consistently demonstrate excellence in their sport and have made the squad one of the top cheerleading teams in the nation. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Ted O'Brien, Legislator District 17, and Vincent Esposito, Legislator District 16, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize the Eastridge Varsity Cheerleading Squad for their outstanding achievement.
On behalf of Eastridge High School and the community of East Arundecoit, I'd like to thank you for this recognition. This is an outstanding group of young ladies who overcame a lot of obstacles this year to get to where they are now. This is their second national championship in 3 years, and I'm expecting The rest of them, the seniors are moving on, but the rest of them are staying back. I'm expecting more national champions from the rest of them. So thank you again.
Would Jalen Pearson please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Edward M. O'Brien and Vincent J. Esposito. Whereas Jalen Pearson is a junior at East Ridge High School and is an exceptional member of the 2009-2010 varsity indoor track team. And whereas Jalen has continued to display exceptional athletic ability throughout the season, earning first-team all-county honors and an impressive performance at the Class B sectional competition this spring. And whereas Jalen placed third in the 55-meter sprint, second in the long jump, and ran away with the Class B sectional title in the triple jump competition with an incredible 44-foot, 2-inch leap. And whereas Jalen's performance earned him the distinction of Class B Most Valuable Athlete in field events at sectionals this year. This performance also led him to place second in the state qualifier and 10th in the state competition in the triple jump. And whereas in May, Jalen was named to the 2010 All Greater Rochester Boys Indoor Track Team, maintaining a 90-plus grade point average, Jalen Pearson has continued to be a role model for his peers through both his academic and athletic successes. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Ted O'Brien, Legislator District 17, and Vincent J. Esposito, Legislator District 16, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize Jalen Pearson for his outstanding accomplishments.
Jalen's a little shy, so it's not that shy in school. But Jalen's an unbelievable athlete, as you can see, based on what was just read. The great news is, for us, he's only a junior, so my expectations is that he'll be not only achieving a lot of recognition at the Section 5 level, but next year we'll be reading a lot about Jalen in the papers, and he'll be making a lot of noise at the state level. So congratulations to Jalen.
Would representatives from the Men's Room, Barber, Lounge, and Spa please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator Travis R. Hyder. Whereas the impact of small businesses should never be underestimated, for they employ half of all private sector employees and are responsible for the bulk of new job development. And whereas in August of 2006, Greg and Rebecca Webster purchased the Men's Room located on Monroe Avenue in the town of Brighton. The Websters have made the Men's Room a premier upscale men's barbershop and spa in the Rochester area. And whereas the Men's Room has enhanced the Brighton entrepreneurial community and each day demonstrates the great value that family-run businesses bring to our neighborhoods and to our county. And whereas the Websters are not only successful business partners who are deeply dedicated to their patrons, they're also deeply devoted to our community, which is exemplified through their support of the annual Tour de Cure, which raises funds to fight diabetes and also promotes healthy living. And whereas small business is the heart and soul of our local economy, we celebrate and commend the Men's Room on its success. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Travis R. Hyder, Legislator, District 14, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor the Men's Room, Barber, Lounge, and Spa for their dedication and contributions to the Brighton community.
Travis, thank you for this opportunity and sign of appreciation. At the Men's Room, we have always been focused on bringing a quality business to Brighton and surrounding areas in the county. Also, as a part of our business plan, we feel a need to give back where we can to great organizations in the community. So even though it was not necessary, on behalf of myself, my wife Rebecca, and our great staff, thank you very much for your acknowledgement.
Would Charles R. Clark please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Harry B. Bronson and Carrie M. Andrews. Whereas Charles R. Clark, recently named New York State United Teachers Higher Education Member of the Year in April, has attended and are taught at nearly every higher education institution in the greater Rochester area. Currently a professor at Monroe Community College, Charlie, to those that know him, has for almost 40 years fought hard for the rights of teachers in various leadership roles within the MCC Faculty Association. And whereas, born and raised in New York City, Charlie moved to Rochester in the mid-1960s and attended St. John Fisher College. Upon graduation, he used his experience as a teaching assistant at the college and his time as an aide and therapist at Rochester Psychiatric Center to land a position as a psychology professor at MCC. For nearly 40 years, Charlie has been known as a gifted teacher in the academic community in Rochester, instructing with tremendous enthusiasm and humor. And whereas Charlie is equally well known in the academic community for his great creativity in solving complex union issues. A self-proclaimed third-generation unionist, he has held nearly every leadership role representing the MCC faculty in his 37 years as a faculty association member. Named the president of the union in 2005, Charlie is most noted for his 20 years of hard work as contract administrator, which has resulted in more equitable salaries and improved working conditions for all faculty. And whereas Charles Clark is one of the most respected teachers in the Rochester community, recently his passion on the subject of human rights has brought new light on the topic, though the MCC Holocaust Genocide Studies Project. Even with all of his contributions to the community and his lifetime of accomplishments, Charlie insists his greatest honor has been the 38 years of raising his 4 sons. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Carrie M. Andrews, Assistant Democratic Leader, and Harry B. Bronson, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Charles R. Clark for his well-deserved award, his lifetime of achievement, and for his 4 decades of service to the community.
I want to thank everyone for this personal recognition. When I started teaching with red hair, I dye it now. 39 years ago, I thought I had died and went to heaven. After 39 years, I continue to love teaching more than when I started. More important, I'd like to express gratitude to our county legislature for past and future support of our community college. Monroe Community College, with its commitment to access with excellence, actualizes the dream of the Declaration of Independence. It provides an opportunity for empowerment to meet freedom. Thank you.
Would the Rochester Somali Soccer Club please come forward? Also President Adair and Legislator Cynthia Cayley. Whereas the Somali Community Outreach and Education Center has shown their dedication to the Somali population in Monroe County by promoting the growth and wellness of the refugee population, encouraging camaraderie and traditional support for each other. By sponsoring the Rochester Somali Soccer Club, the Somali Community Outreach and Education Center fostered the athletic talents and self-esteem of some of its youngest members and is assuring the continuation of togetherness for future generations. And whereas the Community Outreach and Education Center has been very involved in helping new Somali residents feel comfortable and welcomed in their new home. The volunteers at SCOEC provide resettlement services, housing assistance, counseling, after-school programs for children, English translation and tutoring instruction, transportation, and job referrals. Rochester's Somali community has benefited from FoodLink's urban agriculture initiatives that aim to end hunger by increasing the availability of fresh, local produce at a low cost, especially to school children. And whereas the Rochester Somali Soccer Club, sponsored by FoodLink, was successful in winning the Kick-Out Indoor Tournament in Columbus, Ohio, earlier this month. The tournament hosted 20 teams from all across the U.S., and the Rochester Somali Soccer Club's steadfast determination and hard work led them to victory. And whereas overcoming hardships and challenges that face many new refugees, these young men worked hard and displayed their athletic excellence and sportsmanship when they performed their talents at the Kick-Out Indoor Soccer Tournament. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Cynthia Cayley, Legislator District 28, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor the Rochester Somali Soccer Club on their celebration of their achievements.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to represent the Somalian soccer team. We are sorry that not all of us are here today because of most of our players are at work, and we know things happen sometimes. Basically, every year, the Somalian soccer team, the Somalian Confederation soccer team traveled to Toronto in June, and in Virginia also we traveled there in August. In December, we play in December in Rochester here, in the soccer league. At Toronto, we played several teams. We played several teams in Toronto, such as Minnesota, Ohio, and Arizona, Boston, and Maine. These are the teams we play in Toronto. The Ohio Soccer League takes place every spring break. Somalian soccer team travel to Ohio to take part in the tournament. In Ohio, we did win the Ohio tournament this spring, which is 2010 April. So we are here to represent the Somalian team. We need your support to help us to boost the Somalian team as well, because without your help, we can't go further. So we are here with all our hope and confidence that we guys will be there to support us as the Somalian team proceed to go forward. Thank you.
There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold a public forum. We have several speakers registered to address the legislature. Mrs. Rossi.
A deputy will assist you in approaching the lectern. Please use the center aisle and come forward when your name is called. You will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature. Please conclude when the timer sounds and exit through the back of the chambers. Thank you for your cooperation. Our first speaker will be Jackie Farrell. Please come forward.
Good evening again. We came to you some months back asking that the fees be lowered to less than $150 for the season for temporary food service permits at farmers markets. We also asked that the application process be less cumbersome. The proposal was put on the table by the Democrats. I do think that all of us in this room agree at this point that the fees have been prohibitive. The Republicans came back with a proposal to lower the fees to $450 per season and offered a somewhat less cumbersome process for applying. This $450, as those of us who serve the shoppers and vendors at markets in our neighborhoods know, is still unacceptable. Vendors cannot pay it. It is not a fair cost of doing business fee. These are the true small business people whom our local government has been trying to encourage. What we are asking is very simple. We are offering to put money into the county through increased dollars for food permits that have never ever been purchased before. We are offering to put more tax dollars into the state and county budget. We are offering to build community in our neighborhoods. We are offering to teach people about healthy eating. We are offering to encourage small business. I know that you have all received phone calls, letters, and emails from your constituents. I also know that you are telling them that this matter is not in the hands of county legislature, but in the hands of the state. I want to know why we can reduce the cost to $450 per season and be within state guidelines, but reducing it to $150 or less goes against the state. I am totally baffled about what the real roadblocks are. We seem to have gotten stuck on this $450. Please, you have the power. Change this fee tonight. It'll service all our community.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Michael Welch. Please come forward. Michael Welch. Okay. Tim Ellis, our next speaker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am new to this, so I do apologize for stumbles. I do have a couple questions tonight. I do feel safe assuming that you all want to promote local small business. It's fairly clear. And I'm sure you do wish to reduce the budget deficit as tax income or newly sold licensing fees would do. I'm also sure you're aware that we, Monroe County, do currently provide subsidies and tax breaks to businesses such as constructing, improving, maintaining, reconstructing, or equipping industrial, manufacturing, warehousing, commercial, research, or recreational facilities. So my questions tonight are, what is it about prepared food vendors that does not entitle them to subsidies? And can you think of any examples of a time when imposing fees on a small business improved their business environment? Now, I know we did just discuss that small business employs half of all private sector employees and is the heart and soul of our regional economy, so I'm certain we do want to support it. I know it's up to you to decide this. I don't want to tell you how to do your job. I do just ask that you allow our local businesses to do theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be John Curran. Please come forward. John Curran. Okay. How about Ovi Overmeyer?
Good evening, everybody. If you went to the Monroe County website today, you would have known that the county executive kicked off a summer reading program at the DeWitt Elementary School in Webster. But what you wouldn't have read on the homepage is that the Monroe County Library System, and specifically the Central Library of Rochester and Monroe County, did not receive the funding request it deserved for the next fiscal year. Library advocates asked for a modest increase based on usage and demand, and we're getting considerably less than what we expect. I also want you to know that this funding blunder kind of hurts 30 of the member libraries of the county system, not just the Central Library. Even with using some library reserve funds to help bridge the gap for the operation of the Central Library, we still need about $300,000 to stay even to keep our existing staff and services in place. This development has resulted in a proposal by the library boards to close the Central Library on Sundays this fall. It's a severe blow to those who love libraries. And on any given Sunday, in a 4-hour period, we usually get about 1,100 people walking through the doors at Central Library. Now, at the same time, there has been some media attention given to the salary of our public administrator. For those who are not aware of who the public administrator is, he is a court-appointed lawyer who earns hundreds of thousands of dollars a year tending to the estates of county residents who die without a will or an executor. Our PA also collects another $48,000 a year from the county for the operation of his office. It's a unique arrangement that enables him to be compensated basically twice for his office. Now, the county executive has asked you to double this contract to $100,000. Before the PA was appointed by the circuit court judge in January of 2000, the county offered a stipend of $12,500. Now, that's a 567% increase in just 9 years. Now, wouldn't you say that's a little bit excessive? Where are our priorities here? Are they with one well-connected lawyer or with 1,100 library patrons? And if I'm not mistaken, there's a building on West Main Street, which is rented by the county, that costs nearly $500,000 a year, and I believe that there's only 3 county employees in that building right now. So can someone in this room right now tell me why we can't come up with $130,000 to keep our library open on Sunday? The library community is asking the county legislature to reconsider this funding misnomer. Give us the resources so we can keep our community whole. We need someone in this room to step up. So we just want to know who that person is going to be. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Bob Bucheri.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you concerning these fees regarding the prepared foods providers. I'm Bob Bucheri. I'm the president of the New York State Farmers Market Federation. I represent nearly 400 farmers markets from throughout the state, and we are opposed to the excessive rate that will be charged at $450. We feel that it'll drive business outside of Monroe County and to have some of these food providers go to adjacent or bordering counties, some of which charge as little as $30 for a yearly permit. We've surveyed our members and find that in addition to, of course, fresh produce and fresh farm product, the number one thing that they're searching for when they come to farmers markets are the availability of fresh produced food, recipes, nutritional information, and such. And we feel that this kind of fees will restrict it. Republican, Democrat, who owns it, who has it, is beyond my fear of caring. I feel for the business person who's going to suffer by having an excessive cost burden put upon them that will ultimately be passed upon to their consumer and will ultimately affect the sales and integrity of our market. The farmers market is an age-old tradition. It dates back through history and cuts across cultures. Our members take great pride in the quality of the fresh produce and farm products, but also in the reflection of the community needs embodied in each market. We provide a place to gather, greet, and commiserate with neighbors. If you had a couple of heads of lettuce and some cucumbers here just before we started the session, I would have said you had a farmer's market going on in this room because it's a reflection of the community we serve. This fee is an excessive burden upon that community and the vendors that are involved. The vendors represent a critical part of our market and a critical part of our community. I thank you for the opportunity to address this important issue for everyone who enjoys the company of their community. On behalf of our nearly 400 members of the Farmers Market Federation, I thank you because, as is obvious to anybody who meets me, I enjoy good food. And I'd like to see more of it at our markets and more of our markets in Monroe County. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Grace Miller.
I'm here tonight because there are still issues that we must deal with that affect our poor. And you, as legislators, must make it your responsibility to help eliminate poverty in Rochester and work towards justice for all, especially for our poor. Too many of them are locked in poverty and can't find their way out. Or they just fall into very deep depression or hopelessness and can't feel their way out. And this is where welfare comes in at times, which is the first step to help people get on their feet and out of poverty. But if the welfare laws are harsh and punitive, our people will not be lifted up out of poverty, but they will fall deeper into poverty. There are still the sanctions which discourage our people and cause them to give up. They may not be on the welfare rolls, not because they don't want to be, but simply because they've given up. Not turning documents in is not always their fault, yet they are punished for it. Maybe they've turned in a document and the worker says he or she didn't get it, and they are punished. They're homeless, but they've been sanctioned. Therefore, they can't be placed. They're told to be interviewed for jobs, but for many of them, jobs don't exist. They're sanctioned. This past Sunday, I'm sure many of you heard the gospel of Jesus Christ, where he fed over 5,000. And how did he do it? It was his compassion for the poor, that deeply felt compassion that came from deep within him, that caused the miracle of feeding over 5,000 people, loaves of bread and fish. Our love, our compassion, your compassion, can change the whole course of poverty in this county if we really want to do it. It can turn this county upside down and give the poor a break. If you truly want this to happen, if you're committed to making it happen, and if you're able to search down deep within yourselves and feel the same compassion that Christ felt for those who are tired and hungry, who have been with them all day and will collapse on the way home. We have many of our own poor, tired and hungry and collapsing because they need your help.
Our next speaker is Mac McGonigal. Please come forward.
Good evening. My list here is a bunch of questions, and it's all about my disagreement with the county claiming that 81% of the spending in the budget is related to either New York State mandates or federal mandates. So with that in mind, these are the questions. If 100% of MCC spending has been declared by the county to be in that portion of the budget that we don't control, the 81% portion, and why is there so much difficulty making decisions regarding MCC with the assumption that we are only meeting New York State or federal mandates? Second question, why would local government officials take part in any glad-handing ceremonies or receive praise for doing something at MCC that is being done only to meet a New York State or federal mandate? In other words, for the county, they're only doing this to abide by the law because they declared that it's a mandate. Wouldn't it be more appropriate for either New York State or federal officials to be the lead at MCC events requiring government officials? Why would they be slighted if 100% per the county of the spending is due to their governments, not our government? How does Monroe County tally up the cost of the mandated services that are provided to come up with the final 81% when a list of these very mandated services is non-existent? How does Monroe County justify not having a process designed to manage mandates? Per the county's numbers, it represents about $750 million. In other words, if a new mandate come out today, there is no predefined process that mandate slides into for a decision-making process on that mandate and subsequent services. In the 19%, let's see, all right, why does Monroe County implement services that go beyond the mandates yet include the cost of these as being mandated? In the 19% of the budget that we control, according to the county executive, why would costs from these areas be counted up as part of the 81%? If we have employees supporting non-mandated services, 100% of their costs, including civil service, unemployment, insurance, and other costs, should be reported as non-mandated also. In other words, these workers we chose to put on. We weren't mandated to put these workers on, and we're categorizing the cost incorrectly. If mandated spending were accurately reported at below 50%, do you think that would lead to some discussion regarding those things that over the years we've chosen to do, possibly improving our future decision-making? Why have we gone to the trouble of providing a definition of mandated spending in the yearly budget document and yet not use it as we are identifying mandated spending? Last question, is mandated spending really one of life's great mysteries?
Our next speaker is L. Morales. Please come forward.
Good evening. I would like to talk about three things. One of them are the sanctions of the welfare. There's a gentleman whose name is L. Saul Green, and his case number is BA0842952. He has had lower intestine disintegrated when they opened him up. He had been in and out the hospital for things, stomach problems, and they couldn't find nothing. And so the last time he went, about 5 or 6 months ago, since he had been going so many times, they kept him. And when they opened up his stomach, his lower intestines had disintegrated, and his stomach was full of bowels. So he's got this bag on him. He has no place to live. I tried to go to welfare to stand in for him in the gap to try to get him some help. All they would give him is Medicaid. They send him for emergency houses. This bag is busting and it's coming overflowing. He needs a place to live. He needs to quit. He misses the appointments that they're giving him because he's in and out the hospital every 3 or 4 days. And he has to go back and stay till they can get him better. He has been back in the hospital after 4 months of staying there, likely to lose his life 6 times. As far as I know, he was in there, he's still in there today at Rochester General. And they're saying that if he doesn't come in person, that he cannot, they cannot put him on. And if they do, they have to sanction him for 45 days. And I think that's just disgusting. When a person is sick and can't do for themselves, they need someone to help them. So I'm coming to you to ask you, if it was you or one of yours people, what would you do? The other thing I want to talk about is the ID card from welfare. If you were fingerprinted for that card, that should be ID for grocery stores or any place else. And people say, no, they don't accept it. Well, if the police accept it and y'all have it demanded for them to do that, then the store should accept it and it should be corrected. And the last thing is names. I think a name is very important. And just as you got the lawyer, the judge, the honorable judge, the Mr. and Mrs., the deacon, the preacher, I am Mrs. Morales.
Thomas Gregory.
I just want to quickly respond to a newspaper article that appeared in the Gannett newspapers. I don't think I have to say very much. Newspaper article was talking about kicking the bums out up there in Albany, and yet that was talking about our legislature. If you think about the legislature up there in Albany, that we're an extension of it right here. And here you saw democracy in action, and I'm sure the same things happen up there. I think before editorialists decide to write and be critical about agencies of government, that maybe they ought to take a look at the whole of government, how it extends itself all the way from Albany right down through these legislative chambers, where persons like all those who have previously spoke, and I'm going to be quick, have had an opportunity to speak, because that's really what it's all about. So I think that Mr. Hare's article, and I think that the editorials that are being written in the back page of the Gannett newspaper aren't on target. They don't really take in the full breadth of what a legislative assembly is all about. And thank goodness we've got a legislature and that we're not an executive world. Thank you very much.
This concludes the public forum. I don't have a sign up. See if there's I don't have a sign up. What? What is his name? What's the last name? Michael Warren.
Cheryl, bring him up. Bring him up.
Please come forward.
Thank you very much. I guess I called in too close to 6 o'clock tonight. I'm here to talk about the fee for prepared food vendors at our local farmers markets. It's very simple. The question is whether it's fair for a prepared food vendor to spend $450 to come to our markets for 20 days. They come once a week to our markets. They have about 20 days in which they're selling their prepared foods. They're going to be paying 3 times what, or 2 or 3 times what a restaurant would pay to serve 365 days a year. That is not quite fair. 20 days versus 365 days. The big issue seems to be fairness, and tonight it'll be interesting to see if this is a party line vote or whether people can decide fairness on their own. So I'm looking forward to the vote tonight. On the amendment, if perhaps another amendment could be suggested to make the fee $120 rather than $150. But it is unfair to have a prepared food vendor pay $450 for 20 market days. And next year, we'll be back to say, we didn't have anyone pay that. Hopefully our market will still be around when we come back and say that and ask you to lower it again. Thank you.
This concludes the public forum.
I would be remiss if I didn't tonight identify the plant of the month brought in by Parks Director Larry Staub and his fine staff. Tonight we have spirea. Vinny, spirea, it's a great thing to put in your front lawn. Seriously, works out perfect. You're welcome. At this time, we'll recess the June 8th, 2010 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature for the purpose of convening the Pure Waters Administration Board for the Irondequoit-based South Central Sewer District. The clerk will please note the attendance and read the items on the agenda.
PWAB number 1, referral 10-172, authorizing contract with...
Moved by legislator Cassetti, second by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed? So carried. We will now recess the Irondequoit Bay South Central Sewer District and adjourn the Pure Waters Administration Board. The June 8, 2010 meeting of the legislature will now reconvene. We will proceed now with the considerations of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 10-142, amending resolution.
Moved by legislator Quattro, second by legislator Draw. Is there any discussion? Legislator Quattro.
I move to table this item.
I have a first and a second.
Roll call vote, Mr. President.
Move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Quattro.
Mr. President.
I got legislator O'Brien as a point of order on this, but I'm not sure what it is, so go ahead.
Yeah, I know that the motion to table is a non-debatable motion. I only just have a question for the maker of the motion about whether or not we're talking about tabling this to the next session, or are we tabling it indefinitely? If it's
indefinitely. Roll call vote, Mr. President.
Overruled. Let's go to the vote.
Personal privilege. If I could have the floor for a few moments, please.
We are going to vote. We are going to a roll call vote on the table. I'm sorry.
My side
Legislator Andrews, you're out of order at this point. Please, we're going to go to the vote now. We have a tabling on the floor. No. No, thank you. To the vote, please. Roll
On the
call vote.
tabling motion, Dr. Quattro. Yes. Mr. Bronson. Ms. Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Yes. Mr. Barker. Yes. Mr. Beebe. No. Mr. Cassetti. Mr. Colby? Yes. Mr. Daniele? Yes. Mrs. Draw? Yes. Mr. Eckel? No. Mr. Esposito? No. Mr. Gamble? No. Mr. Gamina? Yes. Mr. Haney? No. Mr. Hanna? Yes. Mr. Hyder? No. Mr. Howland? Yes. Ms. Cayley? No. Mr. Lee? Mr. Lightfoot is excused. Mr. Monero? No. Mr. McCann is excused. Mr. O'Brien? Yes. Mr. Rocco? Yes. Mr. Tucciarello? Yes. Mrs. Valerio? Yes. Mr. Yolovich? Yes. President Adair?
Yes.
17-9. Motion to table passes.
Without objection, I'd like to move the entirety of the agenda with the exception of item 11 this evening. So everything except for item 11.
We need a second. That second was Mr. Bronson.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor of that? Say aye. Opposed? Okay. Move on to item number 11, please.
Item number 11, referral 10-158, authorizing contract with Frank B. Iacovangelo, Esquire.
Moved by legislator Hanna, second by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Quattro.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We had a substantive discussion about this particular referral at our committee meeting, Ways and Means Committee meeting, I believe it was. I just have one question, Mr. President, through you to the administration. I think that the question that gets us right to the point of the matter is, why is this, or how is this public administrator position of value to the county? I mean, why is this a good deal for us as a county in absence of a public administrator? You know, how is this of value to us?
Through you, Mr.
President. The public administrator serves a variety of functions that are very important to the community. The primary role is to administer intestate estates without heirs or individuals who are willing to serve as heirs, as well as to handle estates in which a will does exist and an executor is not able to be found or willing to serve. The increase, as far as the contract is concerned, represents the request from the public administrator for the county to fund, pursuant to state law, for the operation of his office, a second paralegal that will be dedicated to public administrator work. As far as the work that's done in the office, over the last several years, there's been an increase in terms of the role of the public administrator, in terms of the work that this individual does for which there's no compensation. Obviously, the first thing would be handling the burial work for individuals who have no willing or able family members who can assist with the burial. The public administrator, as we discussed in Ways and Means, essentially serves as the executor of the estate in this context. Also, the public administrator handles the initial investigation of estates where no will or no family members can be easily located. The public administrator would then begin to investigate, determine if there are family members or there is a will, and at that point obviously turn it over to the appropriate parties. That's work for which there'd be no compensation. Additionally, the public administrator over the years has evolved through an appointment, or appointments rather, by the surrogate to serve as a guardian of property of individuals who are under the age of 18, and this is the type of work for which there's no compensation. The public administrator also handles investigating estate malfeasance matters related to estates. These often involve the misappropriation of funds or issues for which there would be no compensation remaining to pay the public administrator to handle these types of investigations, as well as the very important role of administering estates for which there's very low value in terms of dollars and there's no relatives willing or able to do that. Therefore, there wouldn't be much, if any, funds available to pay for attorney's fees. So the public administrator serves a very important public function in terms of handling the end-of-life issues for people in our community who are often the indigent, but also individuals who die intestate, which is essentially without a will.
Just a follow-up question through you, Mr. President. In absence of a public administrator, I remember that the answer to the question was that Mr. Adair would serve, the other Mr. Adair would serve as the public administrator, and even for the services that are performed by Mr. Iacovangelo pro bono would have to be contracted out to another law firm. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, that is correct. In counties in which there is no attorney or individual set forth in the statute to serve as the public administrator, it's usually the chief fiscal officer in that community who would serve as the public administrator. And again, it's very important to understand that the public administrator serves as the executor, the public executor of the estate. And in those situations, unless Mr. Adair hasn't told me, I don't believe he has his law degree yet. So in that situation, Mr. Adair's counterpart would then hire an attorney to serve as counsel to the estate, and that individual would do the work, the legal work related to the estate, as opposed to the public administrator, which is the executor and more the administrative work.
So through you, Mr. President, I admittedly have no idea about how law firms work, but the pro bono work we would be paying for the pro bono work.
Well, it's a difficult situation, but that is fair to say.
I'm satisfied after the substantive discussion, lengthy discussion we had at committee and this evening, and after having followed up extensively on the issue, that this represents a fine value for the county. We are being asked to reimburse for administrative services that I believe are reasonable, and I intend to vote yes this evening on this issue. Mr. President, thank you very much.
Okay, is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think it would be appropriate to start by, through Mr. President, expressing my appreciation to County Attorney Taylor for his patience. It was a lengthy meeting at Ways and Means, and I appreciated your clarifying comments both then and in response to Legislator Quattro. It is a fairly complicated Surrogates Court Procedure Act that controls the issues here. and Attorney Taylor's been helpful in understanding that. As I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there could be a number of different revenue streams to the Office of the Public Administrator as laid out in the statute. There is the fact that in Monroe County, the public administrator receives no fee, but is compensated at the discretion of the Surrogates Court in terms of fee from each estate that is settled. And in that same section of the Surrogates Court Procedure Act, there is another division, another paragraph that talks about the fact that the public administrator may be compensated for his expenses in office and staff and so on, also by the discretion of the surrogate court with an award from each case. We've also talked a little bit about the fact that there can also be commissions paid under a separate provision of the Surrogates Court Procedure Act. In Monroe County, specifically by statute, however, those commissions have to be paid to the county, to the treasurer of the county, and that isn't really relevant here. What is relevant is that we also have some discretion as a county legislature with respect to a final revenue stream, and that would be if we were to authorize some amount of public monies towards the operation of the Office of the Public Administrator. Is that essentially where we stand now?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, pretty good.
And because this was somewhat complicated and we needed an opportunity to follow up, we requested a number of different follow-up items so we might have some information in the reasonable exercise of the discretion that we have as a legislative body. And a number of those materials did arrive this afternoon. I haven't had an opportunity in the moments leading up to the session to thoroughly go through them, but I didn't see the answer to just a couple of things. And so through you, Mr. President, to the county attorney's office, do we have any kind of a detail as to what expenses are incurred by the public administrator that we're being asked to compensate the public administrator for?
Through you, Mr. President, as I stated earlier, it would be operation expenses of the office, which would involve the 2 paralegals, as well as the $12,000. In terms of the, to get to your point during Ways and Means, in terms of the reasonableness of this amount, in terms of the salaries of the paralegal, the amount that was presented to us was approximately $42,000 plus $2,000 in benefits for each of the paralegals, and then the $12,000 would stay consistent. That is consistent with what we would pay. That's actually on the low end of what we would pay a senior paralegal at the county. So in terms of the reasonableness of the costs of those 2 salaries as well as the $12,000.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. President, do we know how much then, so that we can appropriately exercise our discretion, how much the public administrator was paid by each estate under Surrogates Court scrutiny in terms of helping to defray those costs?
Through you, Mr. President, I know that there wasn't a total at the end of those documents, but God help us all, I actually did do the math and added it up. And essentially the 12074 expenses that we talked about at Ways and Means amounted to an average of approximately $63,000 annually. So in terms of the reasonableness of the amount, obviously the past over this time period, it's been the $48,000 operating expenses plus the $63,000 that was essentially created under 12074. And so to determine the reasonableness of it, going forward, you take the 100 plus the 63, which is the 12074 expenses. That gives you $163,000. And then what I did was compare that to the amount of costs incurred in other counties, Nassau, Suffolk, and Westchester, which have relatively analogous amounts. And if you look at each of the populations, certainly of Nassau and Suffolk, are double the population of Monroe County. So we take that 163, we double it to $327,000. And then if you look at what Nassau pays for the office expenses for their public administrator, it's approximately $493,000. Suffolk is $498, and then Westchester, which is much closer in population to Monroe County, pays approximately $504,000. In Nassau, they pay for a staff of 6, Suffolk a staff of 5, and Westchester a staff of 6. And in each of those dollar amounts, in each of those situations, the county actually pays for office space. So these, the public administrator staff actually uses a county facility as opposed to, in this situation, that's not computed. And as none of these costs, in terms of determining reasonableness, reflect the 12074 expenses. So in terms of the reasonableness of the amount, that's $63,000 average plus the 100. If you compare it to the other counties, that was the calculation we did in terms of determining the reasonableness of the cost.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mr. President, isn't it, however, true that a better comparison, I mean, there's a lot of things that are wildly different about Westchester County and some of the downstate counties than ours. What I do have a sense for is the costs of running a law firm in this area. And what we're saying now is that an operation involving 2 paralegals in terms of overhead expense, and keep in mind, I think the public administrator himself was quoted in the Democratic Chronicle as saying he's very well paid, I think to the tune last year of something like $347,000. But what we're talking about is if we didn't change, if we continued the contract that we have now, the court average, except your number of the $63,000 towards costs and expenses and the $48,000 we have now in place would be $111,000 a year, which would seem to be very consistent with the kind of overhead expense that are actually incurred here in Monroe County. And I think, I'm all for attorneys being paid well, and I wish that more of what I didn't end up being pro bono. But the reality is that a lot of an attorney's time during the course of a day is spent on things that we never get paid for, probably more than half of my day. And that's just a function of the business. I'd love to have my overhead entirely paid for. And I'd point out to this body, Mr. President, that there's nothing that mandates us pay anything to help defray cost. We all obviously want to be reasonable. And the statute says that we can use our discretion if we think that there's a need to help defray some of those costs. And from my perspective, where we are now at $48,000 with an additional $63,000 from individual cases, contributing $111,000 towards the overhead of the public administrator seems to be quite fair. And I beg to offer that you'd be hard pressed to find a law firm in this community that wouldn't jump at the opportunity to take the existing structure. And I hope that we all will reflect on that during times of particular budgetary crisis in not only Monroe County but throughout the state. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. We received considerable information mid-afternoon that I haven't had an opportunity to review entirely, but I did have an opportunity to review some of it. And I noticed, Mr. President, that in the current contract that we have with the public administrator, which was dated October 17th, 2005, paragraph 3 of that contract authorizes the Monroe County Controller to audit the expenditures incurred by the public administrator for the operation of his office and the compensation for his appointed staff with respect to the sums provided by the county. My question through you, Mr. President, is, has the County Controller ever conducted such an audit of the Public Administrator's office?
Through you, Mr. President, the office was audited in 2006, 7, and I believe 2009 by an independent auditing firm, as well as the State Comptroller also audited the public administrator during that time period. But during that time period, the county did not engage in an audit.
Through you, Mr. President, I've read those audit reports that were included in the package today. Those were procedural audits that were done by the firm of Eldridge, Fox, and Peretti, and by the State Comptroller's Office. That is, they were audits that said state law requires X, and they looked at 15 or 20 cases to see whether X was done, and state law requires Y, and they looked at 10 or 15 cases to see if Y was appropriately done. They were not audits of the, as the contract refers to, expenditures incurred by the public administrator. So that while those audits were good, they didn't address the issue of auditing the expenditures. The second thing, Mr. President, in the materials we received this afternoon, I was somewhat surprised, and perhaps I was naive, that this is quite a large operation. According to the 2009 report of the public administrator, at the end of 2009, the value of the estates he was administering was $8.4 million. The value of the estates that closed during the year 2009 was $5 million. So that the percentage fees that the public administrator is receiving are rather substantial. Given, Mr. President, given the fact that the county controller has never conducted an expenditure audit, as was authorized by the agreement of 2005, and given the fact that the public administrator, according to his 2009 report, received approximately $150,000 in commissions and fees on the estates that closed during the year 2009. And given the fact that there has been absolutely no information provided as to what the public administrator's expenses actually are relative to the fees and commissions that he is receiving. In these difficult financial times, Mr. President, I cannot in conscience vote for this. The County of Monroe was paying $12,500 a year for the services of a public administrator until the current public administrator was appointed. Upon his appointment, the fee went to $48,000, which was almost a 400% increase over what had previously been paid. Now we're proposing that the fee go to $100,000, which is more than a 100% increase over what the county has been paying. And the closest thing, in my mind at least, to a rational argument for this is that the transaction is, quote, revenue neutral, end of quote. That is to say that since the county is collecting approximately $100,000 in the fees that it is legally permitted to collect on these estates, that we should turn around and therefore give the $100,000 to the public administrator. I see no rationale for saying that simply because we're taking in this much, we should pay out this much. And at a time, Mr. President, of financial difficulty, and for example, the newspapers reported a couple of weeks ago, and I can't independently verify this, but I assume it's at least reasonably correct, that for the want of $119,000, that the county central library will be closed on Sundays next year for the want of $119,000. There's nothing, Mr. President, that would prohibit us from taking this $100,000 and basically using it to keep the Central Library open on Sundays next year. And given the fact that no information whatsoever, except that there's 2 paralegals involved in this, that no cost information whatsoever has been presented to the legislature, given the fact that we know that the public administrator collected about $150,000 from those estates last year, given the fact that the county has never conducted the type of expenditure audit that it was permitted to undertake pursuant to the contract entered into with the public administrator. For those reasons, Mr. President, I cannot vote for this proposal this evening.
Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Let's go to a roll call vote.
Dr. Quattro. Mr. Bronson. Ms. Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Mr. Barker. Mr. Beebe. Mr. Cassetti. Mr. Colby. Mr. Daniele. Mrs. Draw. Mr. Eckel. Mr. Esposito. Mr. Gamble. Mr. Gamina. Mr. Haney. Mr. Hanna. Mr. Hyder. Mr. Holland. Ms. Cayley. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lightfoot is excused. Mr. Monero. Mr. McCann is excused. Mr. O'Brien. Mr. Rocco. Mr. Tucciarello. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Yolovich. President Adair.
Yes.
15-12, motion passes.
Is there any other unfinished business to come before this body tonight? Seeing there is no unfinished business, Mr. Quattro.
I'm sorry. I move that this honorable body stand adjourned until Tuesday, July 13th, 2010 at 6 p.m.